My guest today is award-winning monk filmmaker Sadhvi Siddahli Shree and her four-part documentary series, Balance, a Perimenopause Journey. Now, the series is a message to millions of women everywhere, and you are not alone when dealing with hormonal imbalance. Now, at a time when millions of women are silently struggling through one of the most misunderstood transitions of their lives, Balance, a Perimenopause Journey arrives as a powerful and urgently needed wake-up call. Now, the groundbreaking four-part documentary series follows Sadhvi Siddahli Shree and Sadhvi Abhuti, whose lives are dedicated to healing, mindfulness, and service as they unexpectedly find themselves confronting the confusing and often isolating realities of perimenopause. Now, Siddahli brings a singular perspective to this journey. And before taking her vows, she served as a U.S. Army combat medic in Iraq, a healer by both training and calling. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome award-winning monk filmmaker Sadhvi Siddahli Shree and her documentary series, Balance, a Perimenopause Journey, to the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Lord, for having me.
Very much so. And I watched this series. A lot of it I was very familiar with due to a lot of the medical experts that I had interviewed. So I can really understand how confusing this topic is for millions of women. So why was this series so important for you to produce?
Well, we didn't even know about the word perimenopause. That's how it all started. How is it that educated women, yes, we're monks, we live at a retreat center, not necessarily under a rock, but we are just not aware of what happens to our bodies. We hear about menopause and you associate that with something that happens in your 50s and you get hot, maybe some night sweats, but you don't hear about the mental health issues that come with that or the body changes that come with that as early as 35. And so me going through my own experiences starting at 38 and starting with high anxiety, not sleeping at night, I'm like, wait a minute, people come to our retreat center to learn these things. And here I am going through stuff and I've done all of the work, I've done all of the healing. What is going on? So, really, it comes down to we're not prepared. And I say this now, I was more prepared for war than I was for perimenopause. How does that even happen?
Mm. Well, I completely understand that because when I watched this series, it brought up a question in my mind for you because were you astonished about how big the scale of misinformation about perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause?
Oh, it's huge. You would think like you can Google perimenopause symptoms, you can go to your doctor, you can get some help. But when we started diving into this, now you see all kinds of misinformation. The doctors are not trained. There's not enough research. There's not enough care. There's not enough support. So, what we thought we were just raising awareness about this is what your body's going through. It's like we're setting up women to be aware, but you're going to be in this healthcare system that's going to push back on you, is going to make you doubt yourself. They might blame you. And so this is not right. So it became really about not only raising awareness, but highlighting the injustices that are out there towards women's health.
Well, why is there still such a big lack of education on the subject of hormonal health for women?
Well, there was a big study in 2002. It's called the Women's Health Initiative. And so it was this huge study just to understand hormone decline and adding hormone therapy to women. And the way the research happened was in the trial, the average age was 63. They're diabetic. They have all of these different diseases, the former smokers, they're obese or overweight. And so the results that came out of it, they were saying that, oh, hormones cause breast cancer. And the way they released that information was via a press conference. So usually you don't turn to the media to release data in this way. You usually share it with the doctors, you release it in a journal, but why did you bring in the media? And so after that, the training stopped, the prescription or the prescribing stopped. And so now you have a generation or two of women that lack the support they need because of this huge headline where there's data to support. Like if you do the studies on the women that actually need it, that are perimenopausal or just went into menopause, you're going to see completely different results.
I remember the study when it was released, and and you're right, the way that they did it was really incorrect because when they did the press conference, they didn't give all the details.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I learned, and you probably learned this in your journey as well, it was the synthetic estradiol that was causing the increase in cancer. It was the synthetic progesterone that was causing
Hmm.
the risk for blood clots. So, was this the birth of bioidentical hormones, which many women feel is a safer alternative?
Yes, it is a safer alternative in the sense that it's transdermal. It can come in a patch, it can come in a gel. So it's bioidentical. So it's not necessarily made in a lab where it's like chemically made. This is bioidentical, which means to replicate how the hormones are in your body. And it comes from soy and yam. So it's very natural, you could say, in that way. And so now women are using that hormone therapy more often these days. Also, doctors feel more comfortable prescribing this form of HRT, and this is what has the less, you could say, side effects or risk. And we have to think about it. We have to think, what are the risks of not taking hormone therapy? So, more heart disease, brain, mental health issues, bone issues, osteoporosis. And so we're not even giving the chance to even try it. And mind you, and you've seen this in the series, that hormone therapy was being prescribed at a higher rate, like 40% in the United States, 30% in the UK. And after the WHI, it went all the way down. We're currently around 4% in the United States that are benefiting from hormone therapy. So this scare has had this lasting effect. And so in this process, more women are getting sick unnecessarily. So that's why it was so important to make this series. So this way we can take care of our bodies because we deserve a strong, healthy life.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because when that study came out, and then we started to see this change where with the bioidentical hormones. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who do not know, uh, as Sadali just said, a lot of it is soy and yam based. The reason that is because those two plants have a molecular structure in which you can manipulate and move molecules around to create these types of hormones and also subhormones as well. When did the idea for women for testosterone to be introduced?
Ooh, for testosterone. I would say it was, I don't know exactly when, but I think doctors were already, prescribing it to women who are, even though testosterone is not FDA approved for women, they do use it for, let's say, like sexual dysfunction in women. And you have to pass all of these questions to qualify like you really need it. And so the missing piece is, why aren't we talking about testosterone for brain health and for bone health? And so only recently has that discussion become louder, thanks to a lot of our experts featured in the series. And hopefully, we have an FDA approved testosterone patch soon. One of our executive producers is leading that front. But look how far it's taken. Like, look what it's taking. Like, women having to lead this conversation, whereas for men, you already know the benefits of testosterone, not beyond libido, it's for your bone health and your brain health. Well, what about women too? And so women have not been studied and part of medical trials until 1993. Women are not little men. So the
That
audience
goes
is very frustrated. The
well,
audience is very frustrated coming
that
out of the
goes.
series.
I A while back I had interviewed this expert, a female doctor, and you bring up something very important that a lot of people do not know. They found out when they were doing research for female athletes that the research was based on substituting a 150-pound man and then using that as the studies instead of actually doing studies on women. And that's where, like you said, doing a study on a little man in place of the woman. And that's where this whole hormonal situation, to me, went completely off the rails. And, and one thing I was so happy about in this docu-series that you created is that you literally tell women in the first episode that perimenopause starts between 35 and 45. And it's so subtle that most women do not know that their hormones are changing because now you're talking about a time where the ovaries are starting to shift hormonal production to the adrenals. So that's where you got the sleeplessness, the anxiety, the lack of energy. And there's also medical injustice tied into all of this because some women will go to a male doctor and they'll say, oh, it's all in your head.
Mhm. Or they'll get prescribed, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. So after the WHI, all hormone therapy, you could say stopped, but what increased? Those kinds of prescriptions. And so we don't realize the effects of hormones on our entire body. And so with that decline, what happens to women? Yes, they'll start to experience the symptoms of, maybe they have the brain fog, they can't concentrate, the anxiety comes. But what happens? We are women in our 30s, mid 30s, and our 40s. Most women, let's say, maybe they have families, they have partners, they have children, they have aging parents. So it only makes sense, you could say, to blame it on stress, to blame it on worry. But at the exact same time, we're not considering hormones because we're not educated about it. All we know is birth control. That's what we know about hormones, but not even hormone therapy. Birth control is a form of hormone therapy, but yet getting into menopausal levels, which is much more lower of a dosage for hormone therapy, there's a fear around it. And so having this education is critical at this time because the highest rate of suicide for women is between the ages of 45 and 55. The highest rate of divorces are in this range. What's also happening? Perimenopause, and nobody's talking about it.
Well, when you and your co-director started creating this series, or I should say, before you started creating this series, and you're seeing all of these, different medical experts trying to get the hormones in balance, is that when you started seeing the confusion? Because every expert that you talk to, or let's say a woman goes to a doctor, then she goes to another one, and every single one of them are saying something different.
It was actually through the interviews, meeting women, going to social media, and studying the women we invited to be part of the series. And you look in all of the comment sections, there's so much anger, there's so much frustration. So it was very clear to us we have an audience, a huge audience that is desperate for the right information. And the thing is, right now, even with the perimenopause, menopause movement, they're saying, oh, it's a booming industry. So now marketing is getting involved and all of these things. Supplements are being, sold to women. And they're not that is not necessarily the answer, but the right education, the evidence-based information. And so what's nice is women can watch the series, men can watch the series and have a strong understanding with the right information that's fully backed up with studies. And then they can make their decision from there. But at least you have the knowledge and you don't really have to feel so alone. And, you ask the question of why. It's because I felt alone. For the first 2 months, I had no idea what was going on with my body. I was blaming myself. I thought in my spiritual tradition, I thought it was bad karma just coming and I was just experiencing this. And so having that disconnect from myself and feeling like my body and my mind were an enemy, it didn't feel right. And I just thought to myself, if I feel this way and I don't even know what's going on, and it's a thing, perimenopause is a thing, imagine all of the millions, maybe a billion women around the world also going through this. And so through that education, we can reduce the suffering.
Yeah, one of the things about hormones that the general public doesn't ever think about is that our hormones play a huge role in our mental health. And and it also plays a huge role in with our endocrine system because some women can have a hormonal imbalance, which then plays into the fact of leading to things like hypothyroidism. I mean, did you
Mhm.
come across that in your studies?
Yes, we have even Anubhuti, the other monk filmmaker, her mother also suffers with the thyroid. And so we don't see that these hormones, they affect our entire body. Each cell really has these hormone receptors. So it's going to affect every single, it's not just even the mental health. It's Like, how can we? It's everywhere. So when the hormone is declining and it's becoming zero and you have nothing else in your system, of course, how are you going to feel? Your bones are going to suffer, your heart's going to suffer, your metabolic system's going to suffer, your mental health. And so we don't understand the full body impact of the hormones and the roles, the role it plays in our body. But if we do, then we can catch the signs. We can get, if we can get this education, even when we're 12 years old and we're going through that uncomfortable class of learning about our body. This is, what happens when the period starts. This is what you do. And just so you know, maybe 30, 40 years from now, your period's going to end too, and this is what happens. But that conversation is completely eliminated. And then the frustration is the doctors also are not trained, right? Because of the WHI study. So they don't know how to prescribe it. And I feel that it should be this flag on the medical folder, the medical record that, okay, this woman, in your mind, this woman is between the ages of 35 and 55. She might be going through perimenopause. So let's listen to what she's going through. Let's listen to her symptoms. Let's consider this. But that's totally off their radar because they don't know, because it's most likely they got 1 hour of training, if that. And that's the huge injustice. The doctors are not trained. So when you have a bunch of women going to the doctors, now going on social media because now they're educated, they're empowered, and they're advocating for themselves, they go to the doctors and the doctors are like, no, this is normal. It's a part of aging. And then that's it. The conversation ends. So for the listeners that are tuning in, if this is your doctor, find another doctor. That's okay too.
Yeah, and I think we've had, there have been so many clinics that have popped up all over the U.S. and I would say that the majority of them are still not well educated in hormonal health because they'll just run a bunch of tests and basically go, oh, you're too high here, you're low here, and they're just filling in the blanks when technically that's not even the right approach to help a woman find hormonal balance because hormonal therapy is really an individualized art, isn't it?
Mhm. Yes, everybody is different and every woman has a different absorption, right? So some might be okay with gel, some might need a cream, some might need a patch. But when you go to doctors or even medical spas where, they're just prescribing it because it is a thing now it's a trend and we want to offer hormone therapy, it doesn't necessarily mean they are fully trained. What we've seen is some medical spas or some clinics, they are prescribing testosterone through pellets. And so the pellets, yes, it is a form of delivery, but this is like a rice grain size of like a little pellet that's inserted and implanted. And now you have these high testosterone levels because they can only put the lowest dose of testosterone that's typically given to males in the woman. And so their libido is, high, it's skyrocketing. And yes, they might feel good for a little bit, but then you can't control it. You can't adjust it for 3 months. And that crash can come down. And too much testosterone can bring that, high levels of toxicity. And that's like a whole nother conversation. So even though they're, prescribing hormone therapy or at least testosterone via pellet, it doesn't mean it's the safest route. It's also not FDA approved. What is FDA approved is the testosterone gel that is for men, and all you have to use is a pea size. But for those that are looking to make money off of women because of they're desperate, they give that option, whereas you can explore other options. And it's not, hormone therapy is not the only solution for perimenopause, menopause. Like a lot of deficiencies are happening in the body, like vitamin D is going low, so many things. So you also have to explore that kind of blood work. So this way, you can bring up the deficiencies through supplementation and, getting the right sleep, learning to manage stress, meditating, yoga, eating right, increasing your protein. So even hormone therapy is not just like a one type solution. You have to, it's not going to save everything, but it's going to really help you. You could say connect to yourself, but there's also other areas, that you have to improve. Like as a monk, I would have never imagined I would be lifting weights every day.
Yeah, but that's great for both. See,
Never thought about that.
it's great, free weights is great for bone health.
Absolutely.
It's one
I
of the
just didn't
best.
know. I just didn't know until this docu-series. It literally saved my life. Perimenopause saved my life
Well, what
because I had
natural
to research in
lifestyle?
a different way.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's amazing when this is why education is so important and the right kind of education. And that's the reason why this docu-series is so educational because it informs and in a way it directs women in the right direction as well as asking the right questions when they
Mhm.
go to a doctor or a health professional that's focused on hormonal health. That's why it's so important to watch this series. But for you, what natural lifestyle changes did you make that improved your hormonal health, but also focusing on the long term aspects of it?
Yeah, so I'm already vegetarian, so you could say that's just lighter eating, so it's not like super heavy eating. Um, we just our lifestyle before, like we're meditating every day, we do yoga, we do breathing every day, we have our spiritual practices. We live in a very, you could say, a pollution-free, almost near pollution-free environment because we're out in the countryside. So you could say we have a very good lifestyle in that way. We're active, we have a cow sanctuary, so we're busy with the cows. But because of perimenopause, what we started adding to were, supplements, checking in on our vitamins, where are we deficient, the vitamin D, especially as vegetarians. Now we take like a B complex. I started taking iron because I was anemic, and that started, showing up in my blood work. And in addition to that, so now we're walking even more every day. We're starting to do weights. We're looking at our plate and how do we add more protein? How do we, find different alternatives to really supplement our lifestyle, our diet, and our exercise, because yoga is not enough. You got to add in the weights. That's how you're going to build the muscle to protect your bones. So again, never thought about it. I thought, what monks, like, who lifts weights? I never thought about that
I
aspect of protecting the bones because I thought, I'm a monk. This like I lead a healthy and good lifestyle. So that's what I mean. Even my own, ideas had to shift and change. And now I'm all the better. My life's going to be better because of this journey.
well, yeah, I mean, to me, you were a combat medic in Iraq, and that's not an easy job.
Not at all.
And of course the Army's going to make sure you stay in shape. And but at the same time, for you, that's a lot of discipline. How did you carry that discipline over by becoming a monk?
It's interesting because when I was calling my teacher from Iraq just to get some inspiration, he would say, military is monk training, right? I'm like, huh? I'm like, how does that work? He says, well, yes, you can lead a disciplined life, but you go wherever you need to go, you sleep wherever you need to sleep, you eat whatever is given to you. So you're pretty humble and grounded in that way. And so you could say like that discipline, that consistency definitely translated into the monk lifestyle. I would say for me, I feel more free in this life, but it really helps shape the mindset. And yes, military, they build you, they make you strong. At the same time, they don't necessarily, at least at that time, support you with your emotions and mental health. You just kind of lock in, you do what you got to do, and then you're out. Then it's like the monk lifestyle has actually allowed me to heal from that journey, to heal from my past, to heal from the PTSD. But what was surprising was, as I was kind of entering the early perimenopause state and my mental health started changing, I started getting a lot of flashbacks. A lot of things that were happening, that happened in Iraq, were coming back to me. And I'm like, why is this all coming up? Why am I all of a sudden super, very, sensitive to very loud sounds or lightning or thunder? And it was just like I was getting triggered again. I'm like, I know I worked through all of this, but then I later learned, because the estrogen is declining, and you could say all of those walls that were built because of the estrogen in my brain, and that started to decline. So all of that protection I had built up in a way started to kind of open up. And now, because of hormone therapy, I'm in a much better place. Those triggers are not there anymore. But again, no one prepares you. Like I've met a few veterans who are going through perimenopause and it's like everything's flooding back. Or we have two previous films on human trafficking that we've done, and now they're in perimenopause and going through menopause, and their past is being triggered. So it's not just enough to rescue someone or to help someone come out of that, dark life, but what about their mental health? What about their overall health? So that's why I think this series is helpful for women, because not only are they going to get ahead for their health, you could say their well-being, but also it's important to address the mental health aspects that we typically suppress, the things we don't want to talk about, because in a way I feel like all of it starts to come up. And so when you don't have the support, it becomes very difficult to get through that. So that's why this conversation is so important, to normalize mental health in perimenopause and menopause, and of course across all of it.
Yeah, again, women, even before they go to the doctor, need to realize that mental health and hormones goes hand in hand. And even when men get older and their testosterone drops below 420, because it has to drop below 420 before they're even prescribed testosterone, and just getting that therapy alone improves overall outlook on life and in energy and removing fatigue and everything else that goes along with it. So there is a direct line between hormones and mental health. And for you, what has been the reaction from women who have watched the Balance series?
The audience is, they're very grateful. They're very grateful that we've put together this series. And then the other reaction is like, yes, they're so grateful, but then they realize, one, yes, they are validated and they feel not so alone, and they know that there's a community out there to help them. But there's also the frustration of like, why have we been treated this way? Why have we been dismissed? We're, just going to the doctors, and within your 5-10 minutes, like, no, we don't prescribe hormones, or we don't have this discussion, you're not perimenopausal, your lab work shows you're normal. So this dismissal is the frustration, not because of the series, it's just a reminder of the current situation we're in. And even though we talk about women's rights and gender equality and all of these things, we are so far behind still in 2026, especially in women's health.
I completely agree with that. I mean, we can say we've had so many medical advances in the last 100 years, but in reality, it moves at a snail's pace.
I
And
mean, there's so many options for men for testosterone. They have Viagra, they have this, they have that. Even if they have risks to all of those things, men will still take it and they won't make a big deal out of it, and the doctors will prescribe it. But for women, it's like a no-no.
yeah, because like with women, and even if you just took the testosterone out of the equation, dealing with estrogen, and it's not just estrogen, there's three forms of estrogen. Then you're dealing with progesterone, and then if the thyroid is not in balance. And like you said, a woman can go to the doctor, have all the blood tests, and the doctor looks at it and goes, well, everything's normal. But how is he reading normal? Because with thyroid, for example, if you're in the normal range, but it's on the low side of normal, you're low thyroid. And
Right.
doctors will dismiss that. If it's in the range, they just move on. But hormonal health is an individualized therapy. You just can't, because back in, with that study back in 2002, what was happening prior to that study, every woman was taking the exact same thing.
Hmm.
So it was not individualized at all, which is where probably a
Right.
lot of the problems came from.
Well, it's synthetic, right? That's that's a thing. Hormone therapy, even if you go to a doctor or menopause specialist, they don't even need a test to diagnose you or say like you're in perimenopause. You can hear it from the symptoms. Like people come to our retreat center and they're telling us different symptoms. It's like flag, you know, perimenopause, don't even, need to have lab work. We're not medical professionals, but all you have to do is listen. Like, can we even listen? And sometimes people, like the audiences, they ask that question, like, what is your message? Like, learn to trust yourself, learn to trust your body, listen to your body. you don't have to listen to a doctor to tell you how you're feeling. You already know how you're feeling. So if that doctor is not listening to you, you still listen to yourself and you find somebody else. But we have this kind of disconnect, like we have our the doubts in ourselves and we trust the doctor because they know. And I think in a way it's a scary time for doctors because I feel like there's a light being shined on them that they don't know. And as doctors, I'm not to say they all have egos. I'm sure they're humble, but they feel like they know a lot of things, and they have been trained. But you also have to be humble and also understand that you don't know everything, that, new studies come out, that you have to have continuing education. And especially in menopause care, like we think that the OBGYNs or the gynecologists, they're in charge of their ovaries. Well, hormones are everywhere. So any doctor can actually help you. It doesn't have to be an endocrinologist. It doesn't have to be only a gynecologist or an OBGYN. It could be your family doctor. The question is, are they educated? Are they trained? And are they comfortable in prescribing it? And all they have to do is take like some training, and like different doctors have made training possible because they want to help doctors understand and not be so afraid and gain their confidence. So here we are with Balance, a docu-series, right? To help not only women, but also for doctors, nurse practitioners to also be informed as well.
So is that the overall goal for the docu-series to accomplish, is for both sides to be educated?
I'd say everybody needs to be educated because insurance needs to change. It needs to be covered. With insurance companies, they're only covering 10 to 15-minute, consultations. Whereas menopause care, if we can get like a specialty experience where you can spend like 30 minutes to an hour with your doctor to really dive in. So we need to explore that. But that happens with the insurance companies, and then there's the government regulations, FDA, and all that. So all areas, you could say, from legislation, policy, medical training, insurance companies, down all the way to women, to even children, to learn about your bodies. It is so critical. Like, why aren't we studying the thing that literally changes women's lives and is not making them feel good and empowered and be healthy? So it is so important across all conversations, and the goal is, for that impact to be there. I wish we didn't have to make this docu-series. I wish it could have been another subject, but this is where we are. This was the situation. We saw the injustice, and so we knew we had to make it because we didn't want anybody else to feel alone and suffer because they lack the education.
Well, the series answers a lot of questions. It's extremely well shot. It's one of the best docu-series that I've seen, because as you watch it, you're constantly learning.
Hmm.
And that even goes for if men were watching this. I think men should watch this because it'll help them to understand, maybe their wife or girlfriend a little bit more, and to
Yeah,
understand that hormones play a huge role, and not to be flippant about saying, "Oh, it's just your hormones." Don't ever say that. So,
right. You're just
but
going crazy. You're just being crazy.
yeah, exactly. But now
Mhm.
here's this series. You're an Emmy contender. How does that feel?
It feels amazing. We've qualified. Our previous films have qualified for the Oscars, but we have such a different kind of audience and very active audience. And we really, of course, are hoping to get nominated to bring visibility to this subject. That would be the big win, that, we get nominated and who knows, maybe you win, right? And it just shows in the entertainment industry that women matter, women's health matters, and we're just lacking that support in the industry. So once you start to see that on the screens, that it's normal to age with power, then it just resets. The cultural shift can really happen. It's already happening, right? I feel like we're at a tipping point, but could this make a huge difference for women and all of healthcare? That would be that would be the win.
Yeah, I completely believe that this series will make a huge difference. Now, is this series Did it become Oscar qualified already?
No, so a docu-series cannot qualify for the Oscars, but our previous films, because they were featured documentaries, they did qualify.
Oh, awesome. I love that. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a four-part docu-series called Balance, a perimenopause journey, which was created by Sadhvi Siddahli Shree and Sadhvi Anubhuti, which are both award-winning monk filmmakers. Now, upon discovering their low hormone levels are caused by perimenopause, both of the women seek to regain balance over their lives while suffering from symptoms of sleeplessness, anxiety, and fatigue. Searching for answers, the monks are hit with roadblocks of misinformation, lack of education, and inequality throughout the medical system. And they find that a canceled study by the Women's Health Initiative in 2002, which we talked about today, is largely responsible for the harsh views on hormone therapy and seek out doctors from all backgrounds to help squash the lies. Now, through these incredible conversations, their own journeys on hormone therapy and using natural lifestyle changes, plus conversations with fellow patients who are suffering from intense symptoms, the monks take on the challenge of stopping misinformation, fighting medical injustice, and educating women on how to make the best choices to live the lives they deserve. And ladies and gentlemen, so when you do see this series, I can promise you and guarantee you that you will be far more educated by watching this series about perimenopause. And for many of you women out there, well, the light bulb is finally going to come on and you're going to go, oh, well, that already answers a lot of my questions. And you'll be far more equipped when you go to the doctor and ask the right questions. And I want to thank you, Sadali, for sharing this very important topic and this incredible docu-series with me today.
Thank you, Ward. It was great to be here with you.
Thank you so much. And again, ladies and gentlemen, you can watch or listen to all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, iTunes, and more. And remember, you'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.